Welcome to IP Goes Pop, your source for exploring the interface between intellectual property and pop culture. The IP Goes Pop podcast series is created and produced by Volpe Koenig, an intellectual property law firm based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Visit us at vklaw.com. This program should not be considered legal advice. Please consult an attorney for your specific situation. And now your host, intellectual property attorney, Michael Snyder.
Cheers, listeners, and welcome to IP Goes Pop. This week, I am lucky enough to be joined by my fellow shareholder, Michael Berkowitz. Michael, welcome.
Hello, it's good to be here. I'm really excited about the podcast and especially about this particular episode.
This week, IP Goes Pop rushes into the trademark office. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when a famous celebrity or athlete or politician or reality star or even a cartoon character blurts out something funny or interesting or says a phrase or a word that really catches the public's attention. And then, of course, is there a way to monetize that? So sometimes there's a gold rush into the trademark office to kind of take advantage of this instant fame, if you will. Historically, I'll give you some examples just right off the bat of catchphrases or slogans. Of course, there was the famous Wendy's commercial, "Where's the beef?" And then you saw it on T-shirts. And you would see those T-shirts on corners, especially near our law firm around Philadelphia. Whether those were from Wendy's or not, that's a question. There are TV shows. When Fonzie says, "Ay," I know these are kind of older references. Or Mork and Mindy, "Nanu, Nanu." Or Bart Simpson saying "ay caramba" or "don't have a cow." Those two could be the basis of a trademark that you would put on some type of goods or novelty or T-shirt. In sports, the world of sports, which we have some great examples from Michael Berkowitz today. But I'll give you an example from the 76ers championship run in 1983. Moses Malone famously predicted that the 76ers would win in fo, meaning 4 sweeps, 4 wins in 3 different series. Also, the term sweep itself became a famous catchphrase of that championship Sixers team. In fact, there wasn't one broom that was safe in Philadelphia at the time. In the world of politics, a politician could say something in a speech, and people will want to capitalize on that. In the movies, The Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger himself says, "I'll be back." And that could appear on your coffee mug. So, Michael, let me ask you a question. Let's say that you hear something on TV or you hear it in a speech by someone famous and you think that would be a fantastic slogan and you want to quickly file something to try to preserve some rights or to do something in the future. Now, let's say you want to make posters. You can't make the posters today, but you think it will take you about a month or 2 to get up and running. What could you do? And really, what do you need to be able to protect yourself or to try to protect yourself in that situation? Because I think that comes up a lot in some of the examples we're going to see.
That's a great question, Mike. So the trademark law has a device called an intent to use application. And I think this sort of fits the bill based upon the circumstances that you just described. Under an intent to use application, you don't have to actually begin using the mark on goods or in connection with services. You can just run to the trademark office and file an application to get an early filing date. And with that application, you make a statement or a declaration that you have a bona fide intent to use the mark on goods or in connection with service in interstate commerce.
You mentioned that the person has to have a bona fide intention to use the mark. What does it take to have a bona fide intention? Is that a big deal? What do I have to do to prove that? Do I have to go to a notary and say, "I have the intention to make a T-shirt"?
It's a simple statement that you make under oath to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
What kind of intention do I need? Is it enough to just really have a good faith belief that I'm going to make some posters or T-shirts?
Well, it's a good faith belief that you're going to be using the mark in a trademark sense.
All right. So it really doesn't take that much to file.
It's a very minimal
So let's jump into our examples here. In the first one, again, if you are from the Philadelphia area, you will absolutely recognize this. It was not too long ago in the public consciousness, and that is the Philly Special. That's right. Now, Michael, do you mind talking a little bit about the history of this term and then how it made its way perhaps into the trademark office?
Oh, this is a good story, especially because it has roots here in Philadelphia. So 2018 was the year that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Finally, that was a huge day. And during the game, there was a play that was executed, known as the Philly Special, which was a very dramatic play and enabled the Eagles to score an amazing touchdown. And boy, did that play, the name of that play, get a lot of discussion in Philadelphia and in the entire country. And I guess the Eagles must have thought, hey, wait a minute, maybe we ought to file a trademark application on, see if we can get it registered. Well, it took them 11 days to finally come to their senses and say, hey, let's file that application.
All right. So they didn't run right into the trademark office. Perhaps they were basking in the glory of a Super Bowl. But what happens when you don't run into the trademark office?
Well, that's a good question. Others beat you to the punch, and that's exactly what happened here. You see a slew of other filings in the trademark office that preceded the Eagles filing during that 11-day period after, between the time that the Super Bowl was held and the time of the Eagles filing.
So the trademark office will look at who files first and how quickly you get there. And then you could potentially lose this swell of excitement when this term hits the public consciousness. And it sounds like that happened to the Eagles in this situation. Now, I want to talk about another mark. Again, if you're a sports fan, this is not just sports, though. This has really permeated the public consciousness. I have heard this in comedy shows. I've heard this when introducing concerts, live concerts. And the phrase is, and I'm absolutely not going to say the way that the actual originator says it. It's "Let's Get Ready to Rumble" by Michael Buffer, who is a very well-known boxing announcer. Now, Michael, tell us something interesting about this phrase. Did this phrase make its way to the trademark office?
Oh yeah, the Michael Buffer must be a very astute businessman because he had the foresight to take this catchphrase that he invented and which he made famous and file a trademark application for it on a wide variety of products. He's got that. He's using that phrase on coffee mugs, swimsuits, robes, belts, shorts, pants, underwear, everything but the kitchen sink. And it has been such a moneymaker for him that apparently he has generated over $400 million in revenue in connection with the sale of goods. Let's get ready to rumble.
So he took this phrase, which he was using on the job, and he was able to obtain trademark registrations. Now, again, you mentioned this earlier. So those have to be with certain goods, correct? They can't just be, he can't just, let's say friends and I are playing a video game in our basement, a boxing video game. If we just say in conversation or just for fun, hey, let's get ready to rumble, could Michael Buffer swoop in to my basement and stop us somehow?
No, that's not the purpose of the trademark law. It's not to pull that phrase out of the public lexicon. It's still available for use under. It's not, you're not using it in a commercial sense. So no, the answer to your question is no.
All right. So staying in the field of sports, the 1986-87 Lakers were the champions that year. That year, they beat the Boston Celtics. In fact, a lot of people will remember that Pat Riley famously guaranteed that they would repeat as champions. And of course, they did in 1987 and 1988. I happen to have been a huge Lakers fan at the time. They beat the bad boy Detroit Pistons in the 1988 finals. And then there was hope on the Lakers' part. And certainly people believed they were good enough to do it one more time. And there's a phrase that came out of that. Michael, do you remember the story of that phrase? And can you tell us if that has a trademark twist to it?
So the phrase is Three-Peat. Pat Riley felt very confident that his Lakers team was going to go for its third consecutive NBA championship in 1989. And so he had the foresight to run to the patent office and get the phrase Three-Peat registered, which he was successful in doing. What he wasn't successful in doing, what the Lakers weren't successful in doing, is winning that third consecutive NBA championship.
Right. Yep. That was a missing piece of the puzzle.
The filing fee that he paid for the trademark application turned out to be a very good investment, because skip forward, I don't know, 4 years, when in 1993, Chicago Bulls do succeed in a three-peat championship, 3 consecutive NBA championships. Then the trademark registration really came into use, and Riley collected royalties from sports apparel makers who licensed the phrase for use on merchandise commemorating the three-peat accomplishment.
I mean, this story is such an incredibly savvy story by a very savvy coach and business person, Pat Riley, because his team didn't do it. And a lot of people might have just said, well, and given up and then, abandoned the trademark, let's say. But he had these rights and someone else did it, making it incredibly valuable. And again, I just want to be clear. He didn't take the word three-peat out of the public domain. You could still talk about a team three-peating. It's just that he has a trademark registration for certain apparel goods. And if you want to make a hoodie or a jacket that says three-peat, you better talk to Pat Riley. By the way, that's one of my favorites of this particular episode, is the three-peat one and the story behind it. Because I know while the Lakers were disappointed, down the road, Pat Riley was not. I want to transition. I want to move to the world of movies and TV. Our first stop is going to be in the world of cooking. And Michael, you found a really great example here, and one, again, that I know people know, that people still use, by the way. I know there are still chefs and cooks all over the world who are taking some spices and throwing them into a pot. What is that phrase? What is that mark? Where did it come from?
Oh, it's Emeril Lagasse's catchphrase, "Bam." I think he was one of the first real celebrity chefs that came along and used this catchphrase on a regular basis in his show. It was exciting to watch, and he had the foresight to obtain a trademark registration for the mark "Bam" for a variety of goods, cookware, frozen pre-packaged entrees, and pasta sauce. And I'm sure that those trademark registrations created a nice revenue stream of royalties for Chef Lagasse.
And I bet that it also provided some kind of a deterrent for other famous chefs or any kind of cooking shows on the Food Network, because it would certainly put you off if you knew that they had a protection in the term "BAM" for any kinds of goods or any kinds of services. It might make you wary to use that or copy it. And it might even make you more creative to make your own catchphrase that you could protect. Do you ever see examples of where, it actually forces creativity, knowing that you can't use a certain term?
Well, I can't think of an example offhand, but I would say that that's really one of the wonderful things that comes out of intellectual property protection. It is that it forces people to design around. It forces people to come up with their own original phrases rather than copying off somebody else. Was there something you had in mind, Mike?
No, that is absolutely perfect. And I love the phrase design around because you hear it in the patent world. I love that you're bringing it to the trademark world because sometimes restrictions force creativity. When the Beatles were interviewed about their song format, which was only 2 to 3 minutes, they said we had to make sure we had something that was memorable in those 2 to 3 minutes. So sometimes the constrictions or the restrictions force creativity. And I do know that there are other now famous celebrity chefs with famous trademarks, you'll see it on their barbecue sauce labeling, you'll see it on their actual shows. So I think it actually force them to create this image to match the Emeril Lagasse type of slogan. Uh, I want to transition into the world of reality TV. And for some reason, reality TV has been a real hotbed, if you will, kind of spoiler for the first mark we're going to talk about, but a real hotbed for trademarks coming from things just people offhandedly say on one of these reality shows. Again, sometimes they are not actors, although some famous people are on reality shows, but often they'll just say a phrase and people will pick up on it. One of the most famous ones, and Michael, the question I'm going to ask you is again back to something you mentioned about kind of taking words you've heard a million times out of the public domain. So in 2007, Paris Hilton had a reality show, and on that reality show, she had with Nicole Richie, she would have a phrase which she would say, "That's hot," about certain things, sometimes ironically, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes on purpose. That's hot. And she went and filed for a trademark registration for clothing, but people were up in arms when they see the headline. And this really has to do with one of our jobs here as IP Goes Pop is correcting some of those urban legends that you see about patents, trademarks, and copyrights. When she said that that's hot, or there were articles that she registered the trademark that's hot, people were up in arms and saying, wait a second, Paris Hilton wants to take a phrase out of the public domain, and she wants royalties every time I say that's hot. Can she do that? And I think you touched on it before. Is someone really removing the words from the public domain? Is Paris Hilton registering that's hot for clothing? Does that stop someone else from just saying that it's hot out that day?
No, you're correct. You're not pulling that out of the public lexicon. The phrase that she has protection for is "that's hot" in the manner she uses it as a source identifier for clothing. So I can understand how the public would get up in arms about her attempting to pluck this out of the public lexicon. But the real purpose of the trademark is to be used in connection with the particular goods that are identified in the registration.
So based on what you're saying, it's not that trademarks are kind of floating out around there on their own. They're always attached to something. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. They're attached to a good, something that's physical, like clothing, or a service. It's always attached to something. It's not just floating around and owning all uses of that particular term.
Now, in the reality world, there are some particularly savvy players out there who actually look for every single utterance in every instance and use it for promotion and also potential monetization. Of course, many of my listeners will be familiar with, and if you're not familiar, I suggest you just turn on a TV or go outside. Um, the Kardashian/Jenner family, they will often say things on the reality shows. For example, very recently, Kylie Jenner was singing. The quality of it, I will leave to the music critics, but was singing to her daughter to wake her up. And she said, "Rise and shine." The next day, not only did she file for trademark applications, but third parties did as well. Now, Michael, this is a question about trademark infringement in a way. Let's say that someone else had the trademark Rise and Shine for apparel, and they've had it for years. Now, Kylie Jenner says Rise and Shine on Instagram or social media. She has millions of followers. she wants to run in and she now wants to have an apparel line with Rise and Shine, even though she's so famous. If you're just kind of a regular business that doesn't have millions of followers, but you do have the earlier trademark rights, could a small business making clothing stop Kylie Jenner?
Absolutely. I think so. That's the purpose of the trademark registration, to prevent uses that are considered to be what we say that would cause a likelihood of confusion. And the fact that this tiny business is making apparel and they've been using it earlier, they're called senior users, and went to the trouble of filing an application and getting a registration that has national scope. Potentially, they could stop Kylie Jenner. Now, there may be some issues about where they're selling the products, if they're if they're selling nationally or within particular geographic regions. But if you were to assume that they're selling across the country, I would say yes, there's a strong likelihood that they could shut her down.
So it's not always a guarantee that this super famous can even protect a phrase or a slogan that they kind of toss off on one of their shows, right?
I think that it levels the playing field. Yep.
I just wanted to throw out a couple more examples, which are just kind of for fun, and I don't know if there's that much of a legal spin to it, but with the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he had another phrase in addition to "I'll be back," which was "Hasta la vista, baby." That actually is still registered to this day for fireworks. And Mr. T from the A-Team, he had a phrase that he said in the show, "I pity the fool." Now, interestingly, he owns the trademarks personally for "I pity the fool" for a number of different goods rather than the TV company or the production company that originally produced the A-Team, which is really interesting because I'm sure there are times when the production company or the owner of the TV show or movie wants to have the rights. But here, Mr. T himself personally still has the rights to "I Pity the Fool." I'm sure you could say it. I don't think anyone said it since about 1987, but you could say it if you wanted to. But he does have it for certain goods and services. More recently, an incredibly savvy businesswoman, Taylor Swift, she has filed trademark applications historically for the titles of either each of her songs on an album that they anticipate will be a hit, or for phrases from some of her songs. For example, the phrase "I could show you incredible things," which is from one of her songs, or "This sick beat," which is from one of her songs, "Shake It Off." There's a spoken word break in the middle of that song, and she actually went and filed for a trademark application for that for a number of goods and services. Of course, in music, there's a statement by Gene Simmons of Kiss that has a lot of overtones for trademarks. And Gene Simmons once famously said, "Anything that can say Kiss on it should say Kiss on it." And they have merchant. Of course, they are known for their merchandising, almost to the point of not embarrassment, but people use them as an example of widespread merchandising and putting your name on everything. Now, Kiss is a very common phrase, and the Kiss trademark is registered for many different goods and services. So it really is almost an attempt to monopolize a word that we all use.
It does seem to be leading in that direction. I guess in the music business these days, the musicians are making less money on public performances and ticket sales or album sales, and a lot of their revenue stream is coming from the sale of merchandise that has the name of the band on it.
And I guess bringing this to its absurd conclusion, still available for purchase online is the Kiss coffin with the logo and images of the members on it. Again, not affiliated with the band, not saying it should be purchased, but just saying it exists. And I guess the fact that it exists should leave us all to pause and consider it. Now, another trend lately are celebrities trademarking the names of their children. For example, Jay-Z and Beyonce filed multiple trademark applications for Blue Ivy. First of all, it's probably good business sense for them to do it. Second of all, maybe they just don't want people trading on or stealing a very interesting name that they came up with for their daughter. So to summarize some of this, Michael, I guess, is it still possible for people to hear interesting words and phrases and to try to monetize that, to try to find a way that, they could even make a business about it?
Absolutely. I think this is still going on today. We have not an infinite, but we have quite a large vocabulary of words to choose from. And if these words are used in a proper sense, in connection with goods or services, people can get trademark registrations for them and attempt to monetize those registrations. Absolutely.
And I guess one thing that I did want to ask you about when I thought about the topic and when we were considering this topic, for the less savvy person, let's say that they hear a great slogan in a movie. They're lucky enough, they file an intent to use trademark application, they start selling it, they get a registration, let's say for t-shirts. Now they see the same mark and someone has it on hot sauce. Will they have the rights for all the goods in the world? I mean, how does that work? What if the person comes in frustrated and says, hey, someone's using the thing that I took from TV. They also thought to take it, but use it on different goods.
Well, I think that there's if the circumstances are correct, those two uses of the same mark, one for t-shirts, one for hot sauce, can actually coexist without creating what we call consumer confusion or likelihood of confusion in the marketplace. That is somebody looking at the hot sauce with that particular trademark associated with it would not be thinking about that it originated from the same source as the clothing.
So it's really interesting to think about that. You can go to all this effort and think you have it locked up across the board, if you will, or for every class of goods. And it turns out that someone else could have as good an idea as you had, but just for different goods. And like you said, then you could coexist perhaps in the marketplace and maybe join forces and have a whole line under the Hasta La Vista hot sauce and t-shirts.
I think that's right.
All right. Well, listener, that brings us to the end of this particular episode of IP Goes Pop. I thought this was really a fun episode to hear about all these phrases. It brings me back to TV shows I've watched or commercials I've heard growing up or, watching the Super Bowl. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And I just want to say for all you, I've been trying to think of a name for our IP Goes Pop listeners. I'm thinking of calling them poppers. I have to do a trademark search to make sure that no other podcast listeners are called poppers, so I won't actually use it yet. That's just a little bit of a teaser, but thank you for listening. And remember, if you hear an interesting phrase or a term that someone says on TV or during a speech or in the movies, perhaps you too can get some trademark rights in that phrase and make an entire business out of it. You never know. So thank you all. We'll see you next time on IP Goes Pop.
The IP Goes Pop podcast series is created and produced by Volpe Koenig, an intellectual property law firm based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Visit us at vklaw.com.